Today, our money quote of the day comes from Albert Einstein talking about interest. He says, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it. Those who don't pay it. Learn to be the bank." So the actual quote from Albert Einstein is, "Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it. Those who don't pay it." So interest is one of those things that's our constant companion, but it can either be that companion that we like or that companion that we hate. Either way, interest is a part of our life every day, every morning, every night, while we sleep, and it's either working against us or it's working for us. Even people who understand interest still pay it. Those who don't still pay it, and those who don't understand it might still earn it. But the question is it helping them win the money game? Is it putting them in a position to win? And the class and topic that we'll talk about today will go over that. So one of the very first principles of interest to know is something called the Rule of 72. And don't be afraid of this equation. Sometimes we look at this equation, it's like, oh no, I got to go back to school and math books. And okay, the Rule of 72 is not one of those complicated formulas. It's actually a simple formula that's really just these first two, that it's the number 72 divided by the interest we're earning will tell us the years it takes money to 2 times itself, so the years it takes money to double at that same interest rate. Okay, so 72 divided by the interest rate is the years it takes money to double at that interest rate. So, in honor of our money quote of the day, it was actually Einstein that figured out the Rule of 72 as well. So to look at a few examples of how that works here's a couple of examples. First one, if we're earning 1% interest, 72 divided by 1 is the math. Earning 1% interest. It's not 72 divided by 0.01. That's something that sometimes people get confused by. But it's 72 divided by the whole number. 72 divided by 1 is 72. So what that tells us is that it takes 72 years for money to double itself at 1% growth. Okay, but that is also something to be noted, is this is a formula that works for compound interest, not simple interest. Okay, so 72 divided by 1 is 72 years that it takes money to double at 1%. Same math, 72 divided by 3 equals 24. So it's 24 years for money to double itself at 3%. And that's how the Rule of 72 works. And so to put it into perspective, what's interesting is I took a personal finance class in college. And there's actually a pretty lengthy formula that you can plug in numbers and figure out basically longhand the future value of money. But what's really interesting is you could get, whether you're using that formula, you're using a financial calculator, or you're using the Rule of 72, it's amazing how the Rule of 72 comes within just a few dollars of using a financial calculator or using this long-handed math formula that, of course, no one would ever use, but they need to teach it in school to feel smart, I guess. And so here's a real live example. So here's four 29-year-olds that are each given $10,000. One of them earns 1%, one of them earns 4%, one earns 6%, the other one earns 10%. So according to the Rule of 72, we do the math, and instead of using 1 or 3, whatever number it is, we just plug it in here. And so 72 divided by 1 is 72. So the 29-year-old with $10,000, it will take 72 years for the money to double. So it's 20,000 by the age of 101. Okay, and at first you look at that and it's like, oh my gosh, there's nothing good about that. But the thing that's amazing about it is putting money in a place that can earn interest. Our 10,000 turns into 20,000 eventually, but we didn't add any money to it. So in and of itself, that is an incredible thing, that money can double on itself without us having to work or add that extra $10,000 to it. Now, there's nothing exciting about waiting 72 years for that to happen, but just the principle that it can happen is kind of an amazing thing. So now we go over to 4%. If 29-year-old number 2 is earning 4%, 72 divided by 4 is 18. So that $10,000 at age 29, 18 years later at 47, doubles to $20,000, and then 18 years later at 65 doubles to $40,000. 29-year-old number 3 is earning 6. 72 divided by 6 is 12. That means our money doubles every 12 years at 6%. At 29, it's $10,000. 12 years later at 41, it's $20,000. 12 years later at 53, it's $40,000. And 12 years later at 65, it's $80,000. So something that's really interesting about compound interest is you ask yourself, okay, fill in the blank. If I was to double my interest rate on my money, I would blank the amount of money I have in the same amount of time. Double the rate, blank the money. Most people want to say, well, double the rate, double the money. I mean, that just seems like it would make sense. But look at these two examples of 4% and 6% side by side. Same amount of time goes by, 29 to 65, and in the 4% column, 29 to 65. But at age 65, the 29-year-old earning 6% has double the money that the one at 4% has. So it's not double the rate, double the money. We increased the rate by 2% and doubled the money. Actually, if you double the rate, you quadruple your money in the same amount of time. Why? Because 72 divided by double of 4%, which would be 8. 72 divided by 8 is 9 years. So every 9 years we would get a double. So in this example, in the 6% column example, we would actually get one more double between 29 and 65 if we were doubling every 9 years. So we would end up with 160. So double the rate, quadruple the money. So then you ask, does it matter the interest rate I'm earning? Definitely. Does it matter whether I'm earning simple or compound interest? Definitely, explained in another class, the Impact School of Money. 10%. 29-year-old, number 4, has $10,000, earning 10%. So we do the math, 72 divided by 10 equals 7.2. We get a double every 7.2 years. By the time we get to age 65, where this 29-year-old had 80, this one had 40, this one's not even halfway to doubling. At 65, we have 320,000. So the fun math to do is that as of the time of this video and recording, the average bank is not even paying 1%. So let's say they were paying 0.5%. 72 divided by 0.5 is 144. You'd be lucky if your money doubled in a bank every 144 years, because it's usually worse than that. Checking accounts at 0.08, 0.09. Let's say one was at 0.072. Well, 72 divided by 0.072 is 1,000. There are bank accounts right now paying that. 1,000 years for money to double. Does it matter where your money is? Learning these rules, and not just learning them and saying, wow, that's really fascinating, is finding the place that money can actually do that. So that's our real world rule of money for today, the rule of 72.